It's another Manly Monday, and this Manly Monday, we're talking about overwhelm and men. And this has been coming at me in a lot of different ways lately, and that's why I'm so like, cognitive overload when we start the whole thing. And this really is something that affects men in a unique way. If you haven't seen it yet, check out the Divine Karama video where he teaches young boys about emotional intelligence using a glass of water. What he does is he has a larger glass of water and like a little shot glass type of water. And he said, okay, now I'm going to pour this water into this glass. Now you tell me when to stop. And of course the glass is filled up and the kids start going, stop, stop, stop. And he keeps pouring. And, they all kind of laugh because it makes a big mess. And he said that, now imagine this glass is you. And we're so focused on being tough and keeping it all in that the glass overflows and then we make a big mess. And I thought that was really interesting. And that works with kids as an inoculation against developing the bad behavior. But this is only the beginning. This is one of the most complicated mental health issues with men that I work with men about, because this is one of these things where you can do everything right and still get an incredibly negative reaction. And the question is, then you're processing the negative reaction as well as the initial feelings that led to you saying, whoa, hey, I've had too much here. And that's what we're going to dive in today. So help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK, or specifically fund our men's stuff on the GoFundMe. I haven't fixed it yet. My to-do list is a mile wide. And, I used to feel bad about this stuff, and now it's like, I'll get to it eventually. It's kind of embarrassing to not have it fixed weeks later, but I can only get through so much in a week. And this is one of these things I've been dealing with lately, because it's just been, I think because partially it's been the holidays, partially it is the dead of winter, and this is when people really start losing it, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. Apologies to those watching in the Southern. But, there tends to be peak in the heat of summer too, when the days are really short or the weather's really hot, people start losing it. And it's one thing to tell men, you have to set boundaries, you have to communicate. It's another thing entirely where they've never been taught to name and recognize their own feelings and emotional states. And this is a huge disservice that we do with men. With women, we're a little too big on, making women default victims. Oh, we don't want to see a girl cry, so get it away. With men, we are so rough on boys. We so neglect boys' emotional communications and the way of communicating that by the time, boys become men, especially if it goes on into a man's 30s or heaven forbid 40s, then it's this big mess. And then we get the phenomenon of a midlife crisis that tends to get treated as something of a punchline or sort of a serves you right, own your shit kind of thing, instead of something we can actually prevent. And that's good for everybody. Because the stereotype of, the guy in a relationship who's checking out and then just staring at the TV and only responding in grunts and not engaging, and not that is an indication of overwhelm. And that does not mean it's his partner's fault. That's the thing. This is so reactive, because when you give any sympathy to the man in this equation, the partner gets defensive, because the suggestion is that they should be uh, giving more, doing more. Meanwhile, they're stinging, they're feeling bad because of years, potentially decades of, sincere, legitimate emotional neglect, because the problem started before them. And after a honeymoon period, um, it sort of, the checkout happened. And because this is treated as normal male behavior, even if it's considered, not desirable male behavior, it's seen as normal. Oh, this is just what men do. We don't see it as the sign of the problem that it is, which is someone really not coping with their emotions and using, numbing behaviors. I just messed everything up. Numbing behaviors instead of actually addressing the core issue, which is often, the technical term is maladaptive coping behaviors from early life. In plain English, that is boys' parents and schools and the people that were supposed to nurture him and protect him growing up done fucked him up. And now his life is just replicating those messages, those patterns, instead of seeing things for what they are. And this is, everybody's a victim here. The man's a victim because he's fucked up his life, and there's a lot of people who's pissed at him, and rightly so. He's, been treating people like staff instead of like people. But then, he has reasons, and this is why he has reasons, she has reasons. It's like, don't come to me with that. A reason doesn't mean you can keep doing it. A reason is so you can change things to be better, to get better. And again, because this is treated as normal, it's not addressed. And so, the partner, and you notice I have not assigned a gender to the partner. I hear about this from, gay couples as well as straight couples where there's a man. And then, some women do it too. I am at risk of this. I have been struggling lately with, every time I try to have a remotely serious conversation with someone lately, it becomes this blame game, and it's just bad luck, right? It's just hitting too many people who have the same maladaptive behavior of, when you set a boundary, it's like, I can't do this until these conditions are in place, or can you not do that, please? It's a big blowout. Oh, yeah? Well, you did this, and you did this, and you did this. And they throw people who aren't there under the bus. And it's just this big blow up. And I'm left there sitting there going, okay, all that is maybe true, but it doesn't change the fact that I can't give you this until these conditions are met. And then there's another blow up. And then you get the, oh my God, why, blah, blah, blah. Not recognizing that, well, why? Well, because I said, if you want this, you're going to get this. If you want this, you have to give me this. This is how meeting halfway, this is how win-wins are formed. And then I get accused of treating the guy like a child. That one is interesting to me, because this is a shining example of, there is an emotional truth in that one. Even though the accusation is clearly wrong, it is not treating someone like a child to say, look, this has to be beneficial for both parties. You don't want me dreading talking to you because you're going to blow up. So, let's give ourselves the best chance of success here. That's not treating someone like a child. That's the opposite. That's treating somebody like an adult who can be reasoned with. But the fact that that's what happened in the other person, this is a potential indication that it is an early life trauma being triggered. And the person who's accusing me of treating them like a child when I'm asking them to adult, that is someone going back to deep trauma from childhood. And because they've suddenly flashed back there, they're projecting on me. People really like the line last week. He's projecting so hard he might as well be the Dark Knight in IMAX. That's what's going on here, you know? Because if you look at things objectively, a person going, look, I'll give you this if you give me this. Somebody trying to de-escalate a conversation, someone going, yeah, sure, but I'm still setting a boundary. None of this is treating someone like a child. This is adulting. But that feeling, and I hear this a lot, that feeling is real. And I do think this, ironically, this is the same thing when women feel condescended to. Because I know that, because I bothered to ask, right? You guys know my whole journey of not using the term mansplaining anymore, unless it's ironic, like unless it's a joke or something like that. Well, you're mansplaining, I don't use it unironically because I started asking, would you talk to a guy that way? Or if somebody talked to you that way, how would it read to you? And the answer was almost always, yeah, or yeah, I think they were just trying to be helpful. And this is where we get into man code versus woman code, because men are trained to, I've watched this. I've watched groups of men just cycle through waves of unsolicited advice that none of them listen to each other. And then they all come and complain to me about what the other one did. And, I'm grateful for that observation, because they don't like it either, but it's considered this is what you do. And what some people, researchers in this field, I forget who came up with this term, the manbox. The manbox is so strong that everybody keeps doing stuff they don't like just because this is what men are supposed to do. And the manbox is basically, and I am not stealing this idea. I did not come up with this idea. I just don't remember who came up with the term. Let's see here. Is there a Mark Green, 2013. Mark Green came up with the term the man box. See, not plagiarizing. But the idea is that there is this structure. And this is where we talk about constructs, right? If you like structure better, all right. But boys learn at an early age that this is what they need to fit into. And these messages get reinforced again and again and again. If you don't fit in the man box, if your pitch doesn't hit that strike zone, you're not a real man. And not being a real man carries a heavy social price. Now, by the time you're watching this video, the Jonathan Majors Good Morning America video will have dropped, at least part of it will. And we'll see how he handled that. But central to that whole situation was his fear of people finding out that he was overwhelmed, suffering from depression, and having suicidal thoughts, and he didn't want anyone to know. And as much as the internet mocked him and condemned him for this, trust me, this is a very, very common issue. And there's more license for women in the short term to admit struggles that way. Not that it doesn't get used against us too, but there is more short term. There isn't an immediate, oh, get away, you're weak, the way men get, right? I mean, look what happened to him. His admissions of, his suicidal ideations was brought forward as proof of a pattern of abuse. Now, the jury didn't buy it, thank goodness, but the media did. And the media ran with that. And you guys know I was sitting here going, oh my God, because that's the man box, right? Think about, think about if the roles were reversed on that one. Even though it can be, if you leave me, I'll kill myself, is a lever of abuse that some people do use, just expressing it, feeling overwhelmed by the weight of pressure, that is not in itself abusive. And the other thing we have to recognize about abuse is we all do it sometimes. It's whether it's a pattern of behavior that someone is either unwilling or incapable of breaking, that we have to look into it. When it's pretty clear you're continuing to hurt someone and you are so up your own ass that you forget to express caring, that's a problem, But unfortunately, that raging and throwing things and making accusations when what we're feeling is hurt and scared, that is the man box. And we need to talk about this in a way that recognizes that the man who's using anger to try to deny the depression or the fear or the sadness is doing that because that's what he was taught to do. And that matters. We can't expect men to overcome this if, one, we're making this behavior seem normal and manly. Because it's not. Okay, it may be normalized, but it's not healthy, right? It's not healthy, and it's not healthy masculinity. This is why it's so upsetting that we get, 8 Batman properties for every one Superman thing. Because let's face it, Batman's the one who's yelling and throwing things, whereas Superman's the guy who tends to just let the bullets bounce off of him. And that's a front too. As somebody who does let a lot bounce at me, I, mea culpa'd to the Discord because recently a moderator, I don't think he meant to. He just did his job and checked people, including me, on not staying on topic on the channel too much. And I had been trying to subtly loop it back to topic without butting heads. And I realized I'm just exhausted from being labeled the problem with the conflict, constantly having to tell people, stop it, stop it, stop it, the way those kids were in the water glass. And so I stopped saying stop it. I just gave up and I said, you know what, you guys, this got to me more than I realized. I'm going to have to correct for this and, put my foot down a little bit harder here. I'm sorry, and giving a reason. See, that's the difference between asking for understanding, but still taking responsibility. I was slacking on letting people know that it was going too far. I was trying to hint instead of have a full-on conflict because I'm exhausted from conflict lately. That's understandable. But I'm still going to make the correction. That's what tends to be missing when someone doesn't feel like they can be vulnerable. And taking accountability, even though I had very good reasons for doing that, insisting I will do this better, that is strength. That is fortitude. That is what we should be teaching everyone, right? That's what's healthy. And if you're in an environment that doesn't reward that, that's an unhealthy, toxic environment. But what do we teach? We teach men to bottle it up and say nothing and just take it and take it and take it and never say anything. Because if they express sadness, they're weak. If they express anger, they're abusive. There's just no wiggle room, And we encourage women to play the victim, take accountability for nothing, be responsible for nothing. And neither of those is good, because, sorry, ladies, trust me, if you're always the one where nothing's your fault, no one's going to trust you with responsibility. But men, it's the same for you, just manifesting in different ways. If nothing's your fault, people can't rely on you to be responsible. It looks very different because of the man box and the woman box. And, one of the things I've been so exhausted by is I know that if I was a guy, the way I solve problems would be seen as right in the man box, right? It's just not in the woman box. It's way out of the woman box. It's not how women are expected to behave at all. So even though someone can intellectually recognize it's adulting, it's still not feminine. And so there are still social punishments. And I watch this happen to men as well. They're told, express your feelings, but that's not in the man box. And so when they express their feelings, they're punished. And they rightly go, look, I can't win here. And that's an environmental problem. And that's why everyone is responsible for this. It's not, I never liked those ad campaigns where, they're modeling behavior, or a woman just gives a weird look and a man has to step in and say, hey, not cool, man. Like, no. What we want is for the woman to be able to go, not cool, man, and not have everybody turn around and go, bitch, because that's what happens. If women have to wait for men to fucking white knight, the problem's going to get worse instead of better. It's got to be the woman going, not cool, cut it out. And then, a guy can back her up on that. But if it's not coming from her, then that's the man mind reading. What does Superman do? Excuse me, ma'am, is this man bothering you? He asks, right? He asks. That's what you're supposed to do. I can't stand it when people speak on my behalf, but that's how I got blacklisted during Gamergate. I didn't want to be part of women are harassed in gaming. Gamers are the worst harassment on the internet, because I knew my experiences in gaming have been better than my experiences in the music industry, radio, or television. I just don't believe the gaming industry is the absolute worst for harassment. I didn't get an offer to go into prostitution shopping in LA via the gaming industry. That was for television. Apparently could have made $50,000 a week in a weekend in Vegas. But it would have been sex work. And if people want to do it, that's cool. But that would have been illegal. I'm not a citizen. That's a bit of a joke. I was like, what? I'm flattered that, you profiled me for this. But, and that was another interesting thing, is anytime I'd been with a friend who was like tall and skinny, they'd get clocked by modeling agencies. They'd always ignore me because I was too fat. But sex work? Oh yeah, I was perfect. Shows the difference between what the fashion industry looks for and what men really want, right? But that's an aside. This is one of those things where I have to actively make it a positive story, because it's very easy to slip into, being okay with that is not in the woman box, right? The same way being accepting, not being okay with, because no one's ever okay when they're mocked for vulnerability. But accepting that people are going to do it, and you do have to just keep your head down and not give your energy to the people who do that, and focus on the people who are accepting and are going, look, if you need to talk, man, no judgment. I had a session with a guy, it's still haunting me, where he said that he tried to open up to his friends, and his friends are like, your problems are too hard. I can't deal. And I actually gasped when he told me that. Because it's like, I know me, because I'm a hard ass. If somebody said that to me, that person would be canceled as a friend. Because listening gives you nothing, right? Listening costs you nothing. You don't have to do anything about the person's problem. Just listen. You know, if you don't think they're self-sabotaging, and if they're self-sabotaging, it's like, look, here are things you can do. You're more in control here than you think. Saying your problems are too much, I can't deal, that's awful. But I've heard that so often. And I do think that is partially people not willing to have the more productive but possibly more difficult conversation. They just want to disconnect. And that is on them. Whenever somebody cuts you off because you are going through a bad time, that is on them. Now, if they cut you off because you're not respecting boundaries, that's different. And this is something I notice men get so down. And so the screaming, the overwhelm is so intense that explaining becomes the such an intense imperative that they become incapable of listening. And this is the danger zone. This is something I want you guys to watch in your own behavior, because when you get into this place, you will never feel supported because you're not letting it in. You're not receiving. You're too busy transmitting because you're so overwhelmed to just get it out, get it out, get it out, get it out. The intrusive thoughts are so intense that, you know, nobody cares, shut up. That is so intense that anything somebody tries to say to you to give you comfort is going to get bundled up in that intrusive negative self-talk. And it's going to sound to you like they're saying nobody cares when they're just saying, look, I care, just I need you to meet me halfway here. That is the danger zone. That is the thing that no one can help you with. Because when you're in that position, you're not accepting help. You're not able to accept help. That's the part where the water glass is over full and it's just spilling all over the place, making a big mess. And getting to the point where you can listen does mean you may have to step back for a bit. And this seems to be something that a lot of men they don't feel empowered to do, or it's tripping an abandonment issue or something. It's different reasons for different things. I work with a lot of guys who don't feel empowered to say, look, I'm getting overwhelmed. I need 10 minutes. And yeah, I recognize I'm not able to absorb what you're telling me right now. And I want to. This is important to me. You know, they don't feel empowered to make that statement. They feel like they have to sit there while somebody's just hitting them with more and more and more, and they're getting more and more and more overwhelmed. You're not capable of getting a good result when you're overwhelmed. I mean, I have PTSD. I have to avoid overwhelm like the plague because I become a crazy person. Like, you know, Jonathan Majors throwing candles. Like, I know that feel. That is what, for me, no excuses when I get there. My job is to do whatever it takes to prevent the throwing stuff from happening. And that, the no excuses is real. That's when you can be tough. You know, toughness right in the man box. That you can do that, right? Like, no excuses. No throwing things. Sorry, nope. But you got to be real tough not getting there, which means telling someone, I really want to hear you, but I'm not going to accept you name calling or throwing accusations. So can we please talk about your feelings, not what a piece of shit you think I am? Something like that. And if someone's saying, I didn't, like, if the first thing, if the knee-jerk reaction is somebody going, I didn't do that, and it isn't followed by, and it isn't like, I'm not intending to do that. Where did you get that from? So you can work out the miscommunication. If it's just an immediate, I didn't do that, get up and walk away, because it's going nowhere good. You know, the person you're fighting with is just needling you. And this is a toxic pattern. They've been taught to needle someone until that person explodes. They will then play the victim, and it will only be about your reaction, not the valid reasons you were feeling bad. And the goal is to not get caught in that trap, because that's what I see with the Jonathan Major stuff so far. We'll see. I will watch the interview and report back on that one. Might do another Heinz stream. That dude's awesome. But yeah, so to recap, to deal with overwhelm, it is important. If you are told you have a temper, if you have anger management issues, overwhelm is probably a major part of it. If you shut down, if you don't know what to say in social situations, overwhelm is probably a major part of it. And you do have the right to control the amount of stimulus you are getting. It's better to, say, I need some air, or I need a break, or to set boundaries. Like, I want to talk to you about this. I won't accept these words. If you keep calling me these things, I have to stop the conversation. And, well, it's true, too bad is not an acceptable response. It's how do I explain this then? Like, these are the sorts of things where you have to be very, very, very accountable, because these tools can become weapons very, very quickly. And there's a lot of people who do weaponize these tools. And so a lot of men I know are averse to them because they've been used as part of a pattern of abuse to gaslight them. If somebody keeps taking away every word you have for something that bothers you, that's a problem. If the problem is that, and obviously, I feel attacked is different than you're attacking me. But I think it's interesting that I'll hear a lot of, I feel attacked from men. And then when I say, no one was attacking you, no one intended to attack you, the guy gets upset because I'm coddling them or talking to them like a child. And I know that's not me. That's the embarrassment of being vulnerable kicking back. And that's why people like me are out there to do those sort of baby steps where guys can, because this is the problem, right? To somebody without the training here, to somebody without the experience here, getting hit in the face with that, they're like, that's it, I'm out, fuck it, I'm not dealing with you, nope. Whereas I can take more than the average person. I still have my limits. Like I talked about, I hit there. And I'm not saying this to make anybody feel bad. I'm saying this to let you know the consequence as fuel to not do it going forward. There are other ways. It is better to take a break than blow up or shut down. And if you get a bad reaction to getting up and leaving, somebody might have a fear of abandonment. It can help to say, I need 10 minutes, I need 20 minutes, and keep to that time. And that can help with the other person's fear of abandonment or fear of being shut out. And this really is, at the end of the day, the way you measure whether you're using this stuff effectively is, does everyone involved in the conversation matter? Do they matter? Do you matter? Because a lot of guys go, I don't matter, I just want the problem to stop. The problem's not going to stop unless the problem is solved from a place where you both matter. And if you can't internalize, if you can't actually believe that you matter and your feelings matter, that's when, professional help, if you don't like therapy, that's what people like me and life coaches and things like that are for, self-help. Getting to the point where you truly believe you matter is essential for managing overwhelm. Because how can you set boundaries if you don't know the property values of your house, right? What's the point of putting up that fence if you think there's nothing worth protecting? Feeling a sense of self-worth allows you to assert those boundaries and recognize those boundaries are important for everybody involved, even when someone's getting in your face and behaving badly or being manipulative. And yes, there's a lot of manipulation in this space, but I don't have enough time to get into that. Hopefully this helps, because I'm seeing a lot of overwhelm, and part of it's the news, part of it's winter, part of it is I think we all know we're going into an election year, and it's like, oh, here we go. We're probably going to get one in Canada as well as the US, so it's going to be a double whammy up here. Woohoo! I think we're already feeling preemptive overwhelm just because of the dread of what that is going to be. And we have to be aware of that, so we don't go whole hog into testing our emotional resilience. We're already 30% full in that regard. But this is going to be an ongoing conversation. I'm looking forward to your comments. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use but can't afford it, coffee.com/Leanna K, or donate to the GoFundMe for these men's issues. Links are all in the description box below. Thanks for watching Manly Mondays.